Chair Gall, you may begin.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 11th, 2022 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held using the Zoom webinar format, so you will see that the Planning Commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note there are several ways to submit comments during the meeting. You may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. You may also send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We ask that you also turn on your video at that time so we can have more clear communication, simulating the experience we would have if we were meeting in person. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. Agenda item number 2 is the roll call. And it appears that we have all commissioners present this evening. Agenda item number 3, we have meeting minutes to review and approve this evening from the September 12th Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments or changes or discussions regarding the minutes? Commissioner Camarado.
I wasn't here for the meeting, but I did review it, so I'm prepared to vote on it.
Great. Would someone like to make a motion?
Oh, Chair Gall, it looks like we do have one more comment from Vice Chair Pfaff.
Commissioner Pfaff?
Yes, I just have an edit. Is that okay? Is that appropriate? It's a small edit, but I think it's important.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at page 8 under, yes, we were talking about wait a minute. I think that was the Victoria Road 223. That is all most of the notes are about that. So at the top of page 8, it was, well, there's a sort of a half sentence that can be deleted. I said, because I think I said it. I'm also having trouble with it. Then there should be a semicolon, not because I would have a better feel about it, because that is not related to anything, but because of a problem if this structure, if the variance were approved, and then it could be rebuilt completely as long as the percentage of the rebuild was less than 40. Well, it was up to 49.9%. The entire structure could be pretty much rebuilt right where it is at the larger variance level that it currently is, even though it would essentially be a new structure. I mean, technically almost new. So that is what I was trying to say. Sorry if it wasn't entirely clear, but I just want to make sure I'm just not arbitrary. There was a reason why I said that. Thanks.
Is that clear, Ruben?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Pfaff. We'll make that edit to the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments or changes to the minutes? No, then I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And Chair Gall, that's approve the minutes as amended, correct?
Oh, yes, as amended.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Chair Gall and a second by Commissioner Haran. Any discussion on the motion? And can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado?
Aye.
Commissioner Haran?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Vice Chair Pfaff?
Aye.
Chair Gall?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0-0. That will bring us to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes from staff.
Okay. And do we have any recusals tonight? Commissioner Lowenthal.
Unfortunately, I have a pre-obligation that means I need to step away from the meeting at around 8:15, 8:20. So if the meeting goes that long, I'll have to recuse from those topics.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we will move on to agenda item number 5, public comments non-agenda. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, the state and local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any item that is not on our agenda? Do we have anyone, Ruben?
I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we don't have any public comment emails either.
Okay, then seeing none, we will move on to the next item. So we are moving on to the study items. We have one study item today, item 6A, the Old Bayshore Highway Feasibility Study, and this is a presentation. So grab your popcorn, sit back, and can we have the applicant step forward?
Sure. As we let the presenter in as a panelist, I will just give a brief summary. So given that the Planning Commission recently reviewed several proposed office R&D and life science development projects in the Bayfront area, the Commission expressed interest in receiving a presentation on the Old Bayshore Highway Feasibility Study. The feasibility study is part of an effort to create an overall concept plan for the portion of Old Bayshore Highway that spans from the northern city limits to Broadway. The study also provides a foundation for the final design and serves as a guide for private development along the corridor. This evening, Brian Fletcher, president of Calendar Associates, will be presenting an overview of the study and will be available to answer questions. So Brian, thank you for making time to be with us tonight. And now I'll hand it over to Brian.
It would help if I unmute. Thank you, Ruben. I really appreciate it. Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing me to come before you tonight and presenting the work that we did along with BKF engineers and Hexagon transportation engineers for Bayshore Highway. It's particularly a project near and dear to my heart, having grown up in Burlingame and actually having our office at 1633 Bayshore Highway for the past 6 or 7 years. I've seen firsthand the roadway, walked up and down it every day at lunch. And it's been a real pleasure to work on the project itself. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. Can everybody see my screen? Fantastic. Let's go to, okay. Fantastic. So the feasibility study itself was kind of first born and identified from the general plan, which identified Bayshore Highway as a real opportunity site within the city for redevelopment. What is a feasibility and what does it provide? The feasibility study has been designed to provide a vision as a first step to realizing improvements along the corridor. I'm sure there's going to be questions about what this plan is and what it isn't. This plan is a vision. It sets, it looked at traffic, it looked at community engagement, stakeholder involvement, trying to identify what people would like to see and then set forth a vision. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done in order to establish that vision and actually implement it. So we can talk about those as we go along. But the whole goal is to develop a corridor that works much better for everybody that's using it. So not just cars, but bicycles, pedestrian, mass transit, and such, and still not forget the vehicles that are also important. So making it more of a complete street. The project itself, the goals for the project, first and foremost, engage the community and project stakeholders, which I'll show you in a second. Identify those improvements that will make it more a complete street. So more convenient, comfortable for bikes and pedestrians, as well as cars along the corridor. Throughout, looking for opportunities to improve the aesthetics of the corridor, whether that's through street trees, furnishings, light standards, and such. And then one thing that we work to, but we do recognize that we're kind of playing second fiddle a little bit, is the study of the Bay Trail. The Bay Trail is a complex design effort that's being looked at right now by One Shoreline for sea level rise, as well as the Bay Conservation Development Commission, BCDC, also sets for guidelines for those corridors. So our feasibility study is meant to kind of be in third row and try to identify opportunities for connections between the corridor and the trail, and how do we better enhance those, but then leaving the actual details for how high that Bay Trail should be and what should we do for sea level rise. Leave those bigger, larger questions to those larger studies such as One Shoreline. So the process that we went through, we did a number of community surveys. This study happened right at the height of COVID. So we engaged through community surveys and stakeholder surveys throughout. So first, in dealing with existing conditions and just trying to get developing goals and objectives for the project and what the people would like to see. Then we re-engage those same two groups with preliminary alternatives. We also presented at the Transportation and Parking Commission. And then once we had a draft, we again went back to the Transportation Commission and then Council as well. So for the rest of my presentation, I'll walk you through kind of the high points of the plan, and then open it up to questions that I can answer. So the feasibility study did a high level look at the corridor itself. And through the study, as we zoom in a little bit more, we're taking a look at lane configurations. We're taking a look at medians, landscape, and or turn pockets. We're looking at enhanced crosswalks, gateway locations. We're also looking at, and you can kind of see it, if you can see my cursor, these kind of areas here. We're looking for connection points between Bayshore Highway and the Bay Trail itself as opportunities to improve pedestrian circulation along the corridor and access to the Bay Trail. We also looked at a very important section just in kind of a high level study is what would we need to do to close some gaps in the Bay Trail as we get closer towards Airport Boulevard or Broadway Avenue. And then finally, we also extended it, recognizing that Airport Boulevard South, there was a desire to treat this as one corridor, and how could we make Airport Boulevard going south look a little bit more connected to Bayshore. Again, kind of zooming into a typical segment. This is close to Benihana's for the landmark. The proposal is to turn the road right now that is narrow sidewalks on both sides of the street with 2 lanes of traffic going northbound and southbound with a center turn lane, to actually do a road diet project and reallocate some of that asphalt towards wider sidewalks, pedestrian buffers with landscaping in order to provide a more friendly sidewalk environment to walk along. We then use some of that real estate for buffered bike lanes. This is a commute route for bicyclists, and I see them every single day. So to have buffered bike lanes would dramatically improve the situation out there. We also reduce the travel lanes from 2 lanes in either direction down to 1 lane in either direction with a center turn lane and turn pockets. And then looked at opportunities to bring in medians, landscape medians where we could, where we weren't blocking any of those turn movements, and also brought in enhanced bus stops and bus pullouts. Here's a simple cross section of what that would look like. Enhanced bus shelters and bus stops, a single lane of traffic in either direction, planted medians where we can, and of course, wider sidewalks. Here's a typical section. This is, again, close to the same area, close to Benihana's and the gas station right there, what it looks like today. Wide expanse of asphalt, narrow sidewalks, and what these enhancements could look like. So again, starting from right to left, you can see widened sidewalks with landscape buffer strips in order to bring in canopy of trees and separate pedestrians from the traveled way. You can see the buffered bike lanes. You can see the enhanced crosswalks where we can be able to do pedestrian refuge islands in order to make those crossings a little bit safer. And then throughout the corridor, looking at both vehicular lighting and then also enhanced pedestrian lighting to improve pedestrian safety at night. This is the view looking in the opposite direction. And you can see what those improvements could look like. In the feasibility study, we didn't get into specific recommendations for this is the bench we want to use, this is the light fixture. The feasibility study gives suggestions for a more modern site furnishing palette for use of high-low street light fixtures that both light the roadway as well as the pedestrian zone, for utilizing shelters and working with the local transportation agencies to make sure that they're standardized, and then lower level, maybe thematic pedestrian lighting on Bay Trail or some of the enhanced pedestrian areas. It also gave suggestions. These are not specific details or final designs, but as part of this enhancement of the roadway, there should be a coordinated signage program that would include gateway signs that would identify this as a unique corridor, that would give wayfinding signs to identify key destinations, and could be coordinated with the local businesses, including the hotels, in order to provide visitors directional or wayfinding to those businesses. And then finally getting to those connections to the Bay Trail. A lot of these are actually existing. When you go out there, we actually found that these connections are actually well spaced throughout the corridor. But what's really horrible about them is that they're just they're not visible. They're not highlighted so that they're not easily recognizable. So, what we were trying to do with this plan was to not only enhance the connection at Bayshore and make sure that there's a small pedestrian node or plaza or special signage, but to make sure that the walkway is different in material from the adjacent parking lots and such. And then once you get to the Bay Trail itself, these are opportunity sites for small pedestrian nodes and plazas and seating areas and something of interest. And what that would look like, this is existing out there today, and what one of those nodes could look like, providing connections from Bayshore to the Bay Trail. Now, as I said, our plan is third fiddle when it comes to providing standards for the Bay Trail, but we did want to provide some desired elements: wider wider Bay Trail, at least a 12-foot section for Bay Trail. Right now, some of those sections get down to 5 or 6 feet. A lot of times they're very kind of windy and circuitous. We feel that we can get much more use if we straighten those out and get a more consistent Bay Trail in appearance. Getting closer to Broadway Interchange. This has been one of those segments that's been very hard to close the gaps in the Bay Trail because of the multiple property ownerships. I do know that there is a planning application that does that, so that's pretty exciting to see. But there are certainly creeks that we need to cross, and those we're going to require bridges. These are also opportunities to bring pedestrian connectivity up those creeks to Bayshore as well. And where we can, where we have wider space, instead of doing a seawall, suggesting that we bring elevation up. But again, this is more of a study for one shoreline than this. And finally, we took a look at Airport Way and what could be done to enhance that. So again, trying to formalize and make a little bit wider bike lanes and then bringing in a sidewalk as closer to the park. Here's existing conditions. And here's what that could look like. And again, there's the sidewalk, some buffer, wider bike lanes, high-low light fixtures could all be accommodated on that corridor, that segment of the corridor. So a plan like this is not cheap. We did do detailed estimates per segment of Bayshore, as you can see here. But these are important planning tools in order to identify potential funding sources and be able to then work towards implementation. So projecting out close to 16 million for anticipated costs for the roadway and another a little over 9 million for projected costs for Bay Trail improvements. So with that, that's the presentation, and certainly welcome any questions that I can answer.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yes, thank you very much. Beautiful presentation. I saw an earlier iteration, I think, in front of council several months ago, so kind of been following along. One thing I have noticed, when I know we're not supposed to talk about specific projects, but the big project that we haven't yet had before us as far as design review, I'm not understanding how. I know you said your design is high level, and the people are firms are submitting very detailed plans that I think go by a certain standard as far as setback. I don't know if they're the ones already in place or an interim or what. It's probably a staff question. But one thing I did notice is that something as basic as a front setback, which generally is or usually is on fairly close to the inner sidewalk edge in this area, is not. It is often closer to the curb. So I see these beautiful drawings and I see these nice setbacks with trees and such, but as a matter of fact, unless the standards are adjusted, we are not going to have what you've drawn. And I don't think we will have what you've drawn. So it's a we want to have room for the trees to grow. We don't want to have a building right next to the edge of the sidewalk where, the tree that we hope will make beautiful canopy is going to have to be cut off at some point, because there's no room for it. So it's just it's a question for staff as to what are we using now? Are we using old ones? And then FYI as we go on, because I don't know how long you will be with this program as far as, honing in on the detail. It's an FYI to really look at where are the property lines in this area of town, because they're not where they usually are, what we're customarily used to in the rest of the city. And it is going to change the vision, whatever is accepted as the vision, it's going to change it. So that was my comment. And I did want to ask staff, what are we using now? For example, for the big projects that are coming in, are we using the standard from, 1969? Are we using a interim? What are we using?
So I can answer that, and others can chime in if they want. The standards we're using now are either what's in the general plan in terms of policy direction, not very design oriented, or what's in the zoning code in terms of what the front setbacks are and side setbacks, things like that. I think what we've seen with each application is they've been looking at this feasibility study and trying to interpret it in a way that, although the feasibility study is high level and meant to show a kind of vision, the projects are trying to implement that vision in a way that's a little more specific, given that they are, designing projects. But they're, trying to, I think at least the projects we've seen have used this as an inspiration in designing their frontages.
Okay, well, we'll see how we interpret those as things come in.
I think from our level on the feasibility study, what we're doing a road diet. So we are dealing, all of our improvements would happen within the city right away. The wider sidewalks, the planted buffer, the bike lanes, the lanes of traffic, all that would be within the city right away. So the only area the only small bit that we are ever proposing for any kind of beyond the right of way is just at the bus shelter locations.
So you're physically,
sidewalk.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You are physically pulling the street in so that the entire thing, so that a property line belonging to private property is not anywhere near, is not in the sidewalk area,
Correct.
which it is now. I'm just telling you because I looked at it. So it's that would change, is what you're saying. It would be all in the public realm. So a setback, the measurement would take place after what you created. Is that what you're saying?
That without knowing it specifically,
Okay.
Case that you're looking at, we looked at with the survey where we were given where the right of way was, where the city right of way lines were, and made sure that all of our improvements were within those right of ways. So setbacks for buildings and such would happen beyond that right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just one comment on that. So none of this is happening on private property, correct? None of what you are proposing.
With a very minor exception, which would be for a bus shelter that would be behind sidewalk, because we're doing bus pullouts, we're trying to get buffered bike lanes, we're trying to get our cycle track in.
Okay.
It needs to be a small area for bus shelter.
Okay, well, that makes sense because you're bringing it down to one lane in each direction, where much of it is two lanes in each direction, which leads me to my question, which I'm sure you guys have probably done, but there has been a traffic study. My concern is some of the development that's happening out there and the increased amount of traffic that we know we're going to see, even with, their proposals and their van pools and whatnot. But there has been a traffic study and everything looks okay.
Yeah, the traffic study based their future traffic on the 24 general plan.
Okay. but not taking into account necessarily any of the upcoming projects that are in the works?
At that time, those projects were not in the works. So no, those specific projects weren't, but I believe the 2040 general plan included, increased traffic volumes.
Okay. Then I just had one other question, and that is the connection from, you hit it briefly, the connection from basically Bayside Park across Broadway to this area of Old Bayshore. What do you propose for crossing, where the soccer fields are and whatnot? What I'm getting at is we're encouraging retail development on ground floor along the Bay Trail and out on Old Bayshore to increase, pedestrian activity. What do you propose to get across Broadway there? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry. Brian, you're muted.
You think
There
I
you
got used to the muting by now, huh? We've had 2 or 3 years of this. Let me, if you're okay with, let me share my screen and I can bring up that
Okay.
that slide. It's a difficult intersection.
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, the intersection itself, beyond highlighting the crosswalks, so going with a colored concrete crosswalk or colored asphalt crosswalk, that particular intersection, we don't have any improvements indicated at the moment. What we did do was improve connectivity from, there was no sidewalk from, just north of the on-ramp to 101, across the on-ramp and then onto the new sidewalks towards Broadway. So we wanted to and included additional crosswalks in there. And this is one of those areas that highlight kind of, this is the first step. That needs to go through Caltrans review because those are on and off ramps there. So that's something that was not included as part of this study, but this study indicates the desire for that improved connection. So,
okay,
good point. I will note that about the actual Airport Boulevard Broadway connection.
okay.
Sure, Gul, if I can just add, you do have the pedestrian overpass from Cadillac over to the hotel, which then you take a crosswalk over to Airport Boulevard. I mean, that is in place.
Right, and my concern is more of getting from Bayside Park, where the soccer fields are, over onto Old Bayshore, because I think it's, what is it, 5 lanes across there?
Right, across Airport Boulevard.
Across
Yeah.
Airport Boulevard over
Right.
to where Old Bayshore begins. So I see that as a potential problem intersection if it becomes busy with people from the park going over to the Bay Trail and whatnot.
We were recently there, and I did appreciate the fact that the timing there is fairly lengthy to be able to get over the 5 lanes. So
Yeah.
That at least is in place and is existing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I wanted to maybe continue with where you were talking about, Chair Gall. I'm concerned more about Airport Boulevard than I am Bayshore. Bayshore has lanes and it has space and can afford a diet. But Airport already is thin, and we're talking about a significantly higher number of people with 2 or 3 projects going on out there now. And that Broadway, that Airport Bayshore Broadway intersection is the one spot where you can get on a southbound 101. So everybody from south of that is going to have to come through that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm concerned with our only 2 lanes now that we have on Airport coming into that intersection. and thinking about how we could actually fatten that road.
Isn't airport as it approaches Old Bayshore, doesn't it become like 5 lanes? I thought.
Yeah, but when we start to put 2,000 and 3,000 cars through that an hour, gonna be different.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point. Is it's going to be a busy intersection. And one of the projects I did just bring up the idea of a pedestrian overpass or a tunnel or something to get across Airport Boulevard there. Again, from the park mainly, because you do get a large influx of people at the park, and hopefully, you keep getting a lot of people at the park, and that they'll want to come over to the other side of the Bay Trail and continue on and do things out there in that area.
The other thing I'm kind of hoping to see is, as we look at more of these projects, this is a great study of the pedestrian and the traffic and things on the road. But I think we need to also address the mixture of uses that we would like to see in some of these areas, because I think we're struggling with convincing developers of what we would like to see them help us develop in these areas that are not traditionally well occupied. If we want to see more retail, and we want to see more food, and we want to see more grocery, we have to have some ways in our plan to push those items if they're not going to develop organically on their own. So I would love to see them all develop organically rather than forcing development to do this. But I don't disagree that they're the ones that are going to bring in all the people, and they're the ones that are doing development at this point. And as we go further along Airport Boulevard, I think there's less and less opportunity for it to just organically happen the way I think it can happen on Old Bayshore and North Rollins. I think those two locations have more ability to organically develop new business that supports the housing and the workforce areas. Whereas I think that Airport Boulevard does not necessarily have those nodes at this time. So that's something I'm hoping that we can get in so that the developers know what we're looking for, and we're not having those arguments during our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Camerado.
Yeah, I think to follow Commissioner Schmid's topic, I think one of the things that we might want to also consider doing with these developers is thinking about their open space, right? So their open space is really not open space in some of these projects. They're really close, it's close to the entity or to the project itself. Therefore, maybe what we can do is do some sort of an in lieu fee and set aside some monies to do some of these bridges or to improve some of these intersections, or to give ourselves something that we can create some space within I mean, it's a perfect place to do it now that we've got kind of a blank slate. So, of course, staff would have to come up with something and see how that all pans out. And I don't know what how to do that, but I don't think the open space that some of these projects are giving us is enough. And maybe it's better that we set aside monies for ourselves so we can determine where that open space goes.
Thank
And
you.
improve our open space.
I think our assistant city attorney would like to interject something here.
Thank you, Chair Gall. I just wanted to make sure, I don't want us to get a little bit off topic. I know we're talking a little bit more Bayfront in general, but this is just the presentation on the feasibility plan. So we want to keep it a little more to questions, and we can certainly set up an agenda item that talks more about the Bayfront in general at a future date. But Brown Act wise, we want to make sure that we're keeping focused on what's on the agenda here.
And this is really just the road and the sidewalks, not specific plans or zoning or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, there will be no action taken on this item, and we still do want to open it up to the public to make sure that they have a chance to speak as well. But this is more just to orient ourselves on what the feasibility study has currently planned in its form that was approved by council to make sure that we can incorporate that later. But I mean, certainly it's good conversation that we should have at some other point, but this just may not be the right venue for it right now.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Say.
Yes, thank you. I think this comment or question may be applicable to the circumstances around the feasibility study. As I am trying to anticipate what the traffic patterns will be along this this corridor with the increased developments there and our intended increase in pedestrian activity, people enjoying the Bayfront Trail. I worry about pedestrians crossing the street. I think that we could be in a situation with one lane in each direction that there's going to be a constant flow of traffic. And so almost a little bit intimidating to cross the street anywhere along this corridor, even though it has, will be receiving a road diet. So I don't know if that means introducing traffic signals to make sure that we actually have pedestrian right of way, for a set of time, but just added, consideration to think about the eventual increase in the numbers of people using the roads and trying to cross the streets.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the commission? I don't see any hands. Is there, do I need to close the public here?
We should open.
I don't think we opened it yet.
Okay. So I'd like to open the public hearing to any members of the public who would like to speak.
We have Adrian Lee, and so we'll bring her in just a moment.
Zoom is just going a little slow today, so give it a second. There we go.
Hi, are you able to hear me or see me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Hi, thank you very much, commissioners. Just two comments. I wanted to thank Mr. Fletcher. Oh, I lost you now. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to thank Mr. Fletcher for his comment about studying the ability to cross from like the Hyatt, which is at kind of the northwest corner, from the Hyatt across the entrances of the 101 freeway ramps, and then to access Broadway Avenue at the corner of Broadway and Airport Boulevard. I frequently see pedestrians. It's basically a run for your life crossing there, but they're trying to go that way so they can cross on Broadway over to Broadway Avenue, is what I would assume, shopping over there. And to go over to the pedestrian overpass is at least a 2-block increase in the distance that you walk. Plus it's very hilly because the overpass goes down and up and down and up, and then it takes you out of your way over there on Cadillac Drive. So people do want to cross from the Hyatt all the way to get over to Broadway and then just cross the Broadway overpass. So I think it's wonderful that that's going to be part of the feasibility study and to work with Caltrans, because people cross there anyway. We should make it safe for them. It is a run for your life. And then I wanted to comment and appreciate the Commissioner C's comment about crossing Old Bayshore, that we need to have numerous places where pedestrians can safely cross, that they can maybe push a button, have the flashing lights so they can get to the center refuge island and then recross over the next lane of traffic to get across Bayshore Boulevard, but to have them frequent and convenient. Right now, should you choose to go from the Hyatt to get over to the overpass, you have to walk 1 block north, cross over, then go over to the overpass, which takes you 2 blocks out of your way. So it's not realistic. So to have frequent crossings would be wonderful. And then to confirm that the pedestrian level lighting will be focused at crossings and at intersections heavily, so that the pedestrian crossings are better lit than just the roadway, and that we would use dark sky lighting wherever feasible because we are near our nature and our preserve. So thank you very much, Commission. I'm glad you're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Or are there any emails?
I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we don't have any emails.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing. And this is, we're not taking any action on this item.
Correct. This was informational, so no action taken. And Brian, again, thank you for joining us this evening and presenting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
We will move on to item number 7, the consent calendar, of which we have nothing. So we'll go to regular action items, and we'll start with item 8A, 1548 Westmore Road. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask you that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? And I don't see any hands. So let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Sure. This is an application for an amendment to design review for proposed changes to a previously approved first and second story addition to an existing single unit dwelling at 1548 Westmore Road, zoned R1. This project was originally approved by the Planning Commission on November 22nd, 2021. A building permit was issued in June of 2022, and the project is currently under construction. The applicant submitted revisions to the building permit department in August of this year, which required review and approval by the commission as an FYI item. On September 12th, the commission called this FYI up for further review. Commission expressed concern with the proposed changes to the second story bay window at the front of the house and also scaling of the window at the front entrance. The applicant has since made revisions to the proposed changes, which are noted in the applicant's explanation letter dated September 28th, 2022, and the applicant is available to answer any other questions you may have. Suggested findings are found on page 3 of the staff report, and at this time, I'd be happy to take questions of staff if you have any.
Thank you, Ruben. Are there any questions of staff? No, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Give them just a moment. Here they come.
I think you're muted.
Can you hear us? We're the applicants.
Yeah, okay.
I believe our architect is supposed to be on as well.
Yeah.
Do you see? Oh, there he is. Perfect.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add about the project?
I'd just like to say that, you know, as time goes on, we've decided to make some changes in the master bathroom, and that is why we're before you today. And we'd hope that you find these revisions complementary to the project.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have questions of the applicant? Commissioner, Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yes, I don't know. I'm trying to interpret the four plans that I have, and some of them are marked proposed and proposed. There's several proposed, and I'm just wondering, I want to make sure I'm looking at the latest version. Is that what is that what we just saw on the, what was just seen on the screen is with your wainscot? You're proposing to do the wainscot, raised almost to that window that is a large window with multiple. The one on the lower right is what you want now, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, all right, then are we just moving into, okay, that was my question. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one.
Okay, I had a question on your response letter. Number 5, I believe it was. Oh, no, I gotta find it. Number 5, the windows on the east elevation of the main bathroom have been altered in size and location in coordination with the bathroom layout. And then when I'm looking at the east elevation on sheet, I don't know what sheet number. Back of house. Yeah. Whichever sheet it is that has the east elevation. I don't. The sheets aren't numbered on mine, but the proposed and the approved look the same, so I don't see any change there.
Excuse me. They're mostly, if you look at the second floor.
I see. Okay.
On the upper
Okay,
second
yeah.
floor, towards the front of the house, towards the street, you
Yeah.
see below there's a taller window, and we want to check because we relocated the bathtub in that area there. So yes, we would change that and change the windows to the right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, I got it. I was looking at the sheet with that also has the proposed north elevation. You have the east elevation on there too, but only a partial elevation. They're the same.
Yeah,
so.
that's very minimal change, if anything at all, on
Okay.
that elevation.
Okay. So I had a question. I went back through the minutes of the meeting where this was approved, and I wasn't a big fan of that bay on the front anyways. Some of the comments in the minutes are the vertical siding tends to elongate it and makes it feel extra tall. The overall height of it seems heavy. There was a lot of pushback on that one bay, but it, and you guys had agreed to decrease it, but then it comes to us as it's built and it's basically the same as what you guys had originally proposed. Because to me, it's one thing if it was something that we kind of glanced over or we didn't really pay much attention to and you wanted to change it and it didn't seem to make much of an impact. But this being on the front, and there was a lot of discussion on this, on the evening that this was approved, it just kind of disturbing to me that it was changed back to what we changed from what we had agreed on and back to what you had originally proposed, basically.
Well, no, not necessarily, because the depth of the pop out was much deeper. And if you look through the notes, it was requested that we reduce the depth of the bay window. So the depth of the window was about 3 feet. And I think right now it's only 2 feet. So we did reduce the depth of it. The overall size of the bay window, it stayed the same. The only thing, what we had before was the bottom of the bay window was a bench seat. And it was raised from the floor. It was raised from the floor of the master bathroom.
Right.
Unfortunately, the structural engineer, when he was doing his structural drawings, didn't notice that. And so consequently, we also, so it was approved with the structural drawing showing the bay window or the shower, the floor of that bay window being level with the master bathroom, okay? In our plans, it showed it as a bench seat. He thought it was just framed up. We didn't relay that to him, unfortunately. Then afterwards, after the project sponsor decided to look at the master bathroom layout again, we ended up reducing the size of the shower and lowering the shower just a little bit so that it is now, it is essentially a shower. There is no bench seat. And the floor is level with the master bathroom. But what we ended up doing, talking to the structural engineer, we reduced the framing of that little pop out or that little bay window from instead of a 2x12 to a 2x8. So we gained some inches there. So realistically, if you look at the one above, the really only change is that the bay window just sort of dropped a little bit. It's a little bit closer to the arch of the entryway than it was above. That's the only change. Besides the window at the entry, we decided the clients would like to have a larger window, and that's their living room. They like to have a little bigger window there for more light. And that's at the front, first floor.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Say, you have any questions?
Yeah, we don't have any floor plans to reference in this set. So I seem to remember that, like you mentioned, that there was a bench in the shower. And so it was a cantilevered bay window originally. But then actually the reason that this bay window got lower is because I think the owner or you decided to remove the bench and increase the floor area of the shower. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Correct.
So
this is the floor plan on your
the-
right-hand side. You see the shower is approximately like 4 foot by 4 foot roughly. I can give you the exact dimensions if you need it. I have the plans in front of me.
Yeah,
But
can we
what
get
the
exact,
intention-
because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
The intention there is, you see the master closet there. We ended up giving it a little more room. They realized after the fact that we need a little more room, and so we started to make some changes in the master bathroom, and that led us to removal of the bench and just making it just a full, just a level floor shower.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions of the applicant? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
I'm not seeing any hands, and we have no public comment emails.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any discussion on this? Commissioner Say.
Yes, I feel like this bay window at the front is it's really kind of a bigger issue than it's being presented. It's affecting a lot of aspects of the front elevation. Looking at the floor plan now, I can see that there are, losing 1 foot in the closet so that the bench could go back into the shower. I don't think that that's going to be a tremendous loss for the closet. But I think that forcing the shower floor out in front of the house poses a bigger problem. I think there's just an imbalance of the height of this bay window accentuated by the vertical siding on the second story over an arched entryway to the porch, and then the tall stone cladding along the outside of the house. Like, just the proportions of these three elements are off. Like, it almost should be in reverse. The wainscoting should come down lower. Maybe it's not an arched entryway to the front porch, and the bay window should be shorter. And certainly the vertical siding is not helping. So I don't see that this issue has been resolved, and it's something that was brought up from the very beginning. And it's gotten worse actually in this rendition. And so did they say that this has been built already? Or they're trying to get this approved to build?
It's currently under construction. I don't know if they're as built though.
So anyway, I'm just troubled by the proposed bay window at the front elevation. I think the other elements are okay, but I don't find that this has been resolved satisfactorily.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the bay looks odd to start with, and that was why the suggestion for making it a bench seat came up. It would be a simple enough fix for an engineer, or even a good carpenter even, to come up with a structural solution that can support a 1 foot projection for a seat. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, that's the big one for me. I'm not crazy about a lot of the other elements, just because they add that height that we were trying to get away from by eliminating some of those upper windows and putting in vertical board and batten siding. It just makes it look taller, which we're trying to get away from. But that one in the front, I mean, if this was around the back or something, I could probably go along with it. But I agree with Commissioner Say. I don't think that this is a good solution to a problem that we had already resolved, I thought. So I don't know if I can go along with the changes, or at least that change. Anyone else like to comment? Commissioner Haran.
Yeah, I mean, I hear everyone. I guess aesthetics are subjective. It doesn't bother me as much as it sounds like it bothers the other commissioners. The vertical siding might be an easier fix to change that orientation to not make it look as tall, but it's nice to have some variety in the house to house, and this is a little bit of a different architectural feature. It really doesn't bother me.
Okay, Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yeah, though it wasn't brought up when this was called up, I also I don't have an issue. I agree with what was said previously, the issue of the bump out, but I did not. I actually thought that I guess it's page. Let's see, that would be the proposed west elevation. I actually think that's fine. I mean, to me, that's fine. I think that's an improvement over this little window that was in there before. However, the one that also looks strange, very strange to me, and I don't think improved, is the north elevation, which it just, that upper window, it was better before. I mean, that it's kind of oversized, but now because of the vertical siding, it looks, it just makes it so prominent. So I'm not sure that was a good decision. I do want to thank the applicant for actually not going ahead and building this thing, because that's not allowed. And that, I appreciate that it looks like it's down, way far down, and nothing's happened. So definitely appreciative that they haven't done this, but therefore it's just an opportunity. I feel like this can really be fixed. But I don't see it's fixed to me. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Camerado.
I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I also agree with Commissioner Pfaff on the north elevation. I think that change just makes it look so much taller. And I don't really like that change in particular. I can understand some of the other changes, that's fine. But the front elevation and this north elevation are of concern to me.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Say.
Yeah, so I think we're supposed to take action on this item tonight. So I don't know if we should reopen the public hearing so that the applicant can, I don't know, maybe address our concerns, or.
Well, I don't think that we need to. I think we can vote and they can come back if they would like to change something, or am I correct?
Yeah, and Chair Gall, you do have some options tonight. So you can deny the request altogether. You can approve the changes minus, calling out certain changes that you're not approving. Or you can continue the item and have them address the concerns that were expressed tonight. So you do have a couple options.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion? All right, I'll make a motion. I will make a motion to approve the changes except for the front bay window and the north elevation window that was referred to by Commissioner Pfaff. I'd like to see those come back as the original design.
I would second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Chair Gall and a second by Commissioner Camerado. Any discussion on the motion? No? Okay, then can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
I'm sorry, I had my hand up. Could I just clarify what the motion
yes.
is? Yeah, so you want the original design for the windows?
For the window that was referred to by Commissioner Pfaff on the north elevation.
Okay.
And for the bay window at the front.
Okay.
And the bay window at the front has more to do with the size of the bay than the window itself.
Right. Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pfaff,
Aye.
Chair Gall.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0, and this is repealable. Correct? Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, this is appealable.
So, okay. An action by the planning commission is appealable to the city council within 10 days of the planning commission's action. If the planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $745, which includes noticing costs. All right, well, that will bring us on to regular action item 9B, 1805 Easton. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communication regarding this project? I see no hands, so let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Sure. This is an application for a design review for a first and second story addition to an existing single unit dwelling at 1805 Easton Drive, zoned R1. The applicant is proposing a first and second floor addition at the rear of the house. The total proposed floor area would increase from 3,190 square feet to 3,705 square feet, where 3,793 square feet is the maximum allowed. There are a total of 4 bedrooms in the existing house, and with this application, the number of bedrooms would not change. 2 parking spaces, one of which must be covered, are required for a 4-bedroom house. The attached garage provides the required covered parking space, and 1 uncovered parking space is provided in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on February 14th, the Commission had several suggestions regarding this project. The applicant submitted a response letter dated September 30th, 2022, and revised plan date stamped September 26th, 2022, to address the Commission's comments. Suggested findings are found on page 3 of the staff report. The applicant is available to discuss the application, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
Thank you, Ruben. Are there any questions of staff? No, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you for taking the time. My name is Michael Seitz. My wife, Raquel, and I are happy to come back and get input from all the members. I think when we were last visited on February 14th, several suggested changes. I think we've tried to address as best we possibly can all of those changes. And we've also shared those changes with all of our neighbors, Phil, Beth, Dustin, Tony, and they're all supportive and on board with this. So this addition shouldn't be visible from the front at all. So we're humbly asking for your speedy approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? No hands. Okay. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
I'm not seeing any hands, and we have no public comment emails.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments?
Yeah, Reading through the comments and from the previous meeting, which I was not at, but I was able to watch. I think they did a good job addressing a lot of the comments. I think the project looks really nice. I think the plans are really well put together, and I'm certainly in favor.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would agree with Vice Chair Foth.
I didn't say it. No, I agree. I think the time they spent was well worth it, and looks like day and night improvements to me anyway. And thank you for addressing those.
Yeah, I would agree with those comments. I am still a little bit confused, and I know it's not enough conversation for this application specifically, but I am a little confused about what constitutes a JADU inside a house. So I'll address that separately with the planning staff at a different time. Okay, do we have, would anyone like to make a motion on this project? Commissioner Lowenthal, you're looking at your 8:15 deadline.
Got to get my money's worth here. No, I move to approve the plans as per the staff report and the amended changes.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lowenthal, second by Vice Chair Foth. Any discussion on the motion? No, then can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid.
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Foth,
Aye.
and Chair Gull.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0. And an action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $745, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations, and we will move on to agenda item 8C. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? And I do not see any hands, so let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
This is an application for commercial design review for exterior facade changes to an existing multi-tenant commercial building at 1305 Rollins Road, zoned II. The proposed project includes exterior facade upgrades to the existing building. No new floor area is being proposed, and there would be no change in the overall building height. The scope of work includes demolition of the existing exterior finishes, plywood soffit at the entrances, existing storefronts, and overhead garage doors. New exterior materials would be installed, included corrugated metal and stucco exterior siding, aluminum storefront windows, metal clad canopies, and new aluminum and glass overhead doors. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on September 26th, the Commission discussed the proposed project and requested that the architect provide a detail on the transition of the different materials for the proposed and existing facades to show how the corrugated metal would be closed off. The applicant responded to the Commission's questions in a letter and a facade detail sheet, date September 27th. Suggested findings are found on page 5 of your staff report. The applicant is available to discuss the application this evening, but first I'll take questions of staff if you have any.
Thank you, Ruben. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing no hands, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Mr. Hagman, you may speak whenever you're ready.
Hello?
There you go.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Commissioner Schmidt asked about the detailed transition between the corrugated metal and the tilt-up concrete. So I provided those two details. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have. And we look forward to building this improvement on a building that actually is a little tired and it needs some enhancement. So,
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, I don't see any hands raised. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Yes, it looks like we have Steve Mitchell, so we'll bring Mr. Mitchell in.
You're muted. I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell. Nope, can't hear you yet. I can read your lips. Nope, not yet.
How's that?
There you go.
Great. Appreciate you taking the time to review this project. We're just back at you with the comments that were requested. I think it's always been a desire of Black Mountain Properties to have a building that presents itself well to the public as well as to our tenants. We propose to make this upgrade to the exterior, and at the same time, we will be looking at doing a seismic upgrade to the building as well, which we will submit into building department at the same time. So I think Hagman Associates has done a job, good job of presenting it all for what we would like to see done with the building, and hope that it's passed tonight.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any emails, Ruben, or any
No,
other?
no other hands raised and no emails.
Okay, then I'm gonna close the public hearing. Commissioners, do you have any comments? Motions? Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the applicant for providing the details and just thinking about those transitions before it was later in the process. It'll just make for a better project. So I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this with the changes made.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Camarado?
I agree with Commissioner Schmidt, and I'll second that motion.
All right. We also have a hand raised from Vice Chair Pfaff.
Sorry, I think it was just a competition with Commissioner Camarado, but I really appreciate, first of all, Commissioner Schmidt bringing that detail up, because that's something I'd never seen before, and very much appreciate it being addressed. So thank you so much. Good job.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Schmidt and a second by Commissioner Camarado. Is there any discussion on the motion? See no hands, so can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Pfaff.
Aye.
Chair Gall.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0, and action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $745, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations, and that will bring us to agenda item 8D. And I'm not sure how to present this, but it's consideration and recommendation of a repeal of the Bayfront specific plan and a couple other things. I'll let Ruben, I'm gonna hand this over to Ruben.
Thanks, Chair Gall. And I will actually hand it over to Community Development Director Gardner to make this presentation.
Thank you. And yes, this is an odd item. It's not one that we get every day, but in any case, here we go. The Bayfront specific plan was first adopted in 2004 with amendments in 2006 and 2012. The North Burlingame Rollins Road specific plan was first adopted in 2004 with amendments in 2007. Since that time, the city's general plan has been updated, followed by the zoning ordinance update. The general plan is intended to supersede the Bayfront and North Burlingame Rollins Road specific plans and includes policies and regulations for each specific plan area. These policies and regulations are quite different from those of the former specific plans, and that is deliberate. In the general plan update, the community was asked what areas should change and what areas should stay the same in Burlingame. And the consensus was that the Bayfront, North Burlingame, and Rollins Road areas should all have some changes, and that the general plan reflects that direction. And there go my notes. Hold on. However, the specific plans have remained on the books and will do so until formally repealed. That has caused some confusion as people have tried to figure out whether the specific plans are still in effect or whether to follow the general plan or the specific plan. With the repeals, the general plan will be considered the guiding policy document for the respective specific plan areas. The Bayfront and North Burlingame Rollins Road specific plans also had corresponding development fees. These were intended to fund roadway improvements within the specific plan areas, but with the specific plans being repealed, the fees would also need to be repealed. As described in the staff report, the development fees that have been collected need to be used for improvements that were described in the respective specific plans, or in kind of lay terms for what they were originally intended to be collected for. So for the Bayfront area, fees collected will be allocated to the Bayshore Highway median reconstruction, which is somewhat aligned with the feasibility study that we saw earlier this evening. Might consider that perhaps the next phase there. For the North Burlingame Rollins Road plan, fees will be allocated to the Rollins Road Gateway, Rollins Road Streetscape, and El Camino Real Streetscape projects. Going forward, development projects will be subject to the full range of public facilities impact fees. As described in the staff report, most of those fees have already been applied except for the public facilities and equipment fee and the streets and traffic fees. Those were swapped out for the specific plan fees. With the specific plan development fees repealed, the public facilities and equipment fee and the streets and traffic fee will be assessed as they are for all other developments throughout the rest of the city. Last but not least, there has already been work on a new specific plan for the North Rollins Road area, and that is an implementation of the general plan, the new version in the general plan. It's been in the works for a while, and it will be brought to the Planning Commission as a study item next month. So with that background, the Planning Commission is being asked to consider a recommendation to the City Council to first formally repeal the Bayfront specific plan and North Burlingame Rollins Road specific plans, and formally repeal the corresponding development fees. And with that, I am available for questions.
Chair Gull, you're on mute.
Thank you, Kevin. So I guess that was kind of our presentation. So that's part of our public hearing, I assume, or whatever. Do we have any questions of staff or the applicant, who I'm going to call Kevin?
The city is the applicant. This is city.
Okay. All right.
And in fact, it's, this is really, it's housekeeping more than anything. Right. We have old plans on the books, right. Causes confusion, and we want to fix that.
Okay. So I see one hand from Vice Chair Foss.
Yeah, this is kind of a continuation of the conversation I had. The fellow probably didn't have any idea what I was talking about. I think this all sounds great, and the development, all the fee stuff all makes sense. It personally makes me nervous to, seeing stuff come down the pike, being uncomfortable that that is not a fixed design, what we've seen, and then wondering about, are the setbacks going to be appropriate? I don't even remember what the Bayfront, the old specific plan was. I can't remember. So I don't know. I know it all makes sense to everybody, but I feel like there's just this gap in here where we're going to end up taking these projects and kind of trusting that they sort of follows the general plan. But if the general plan really isn't exacting enough because we don't really have a design plan, I'm not really sure how it all fits together. So I'm uncomfortable with some parts of this. I'm probably the only one because I'm an in the weeds person, but that was just my comment. Question, whatever.
Can you respond to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it does suggest there, all things being equal, there would be a new specific plan that would address some of those urban design issues. And that is something we're working on for at least the North Rollins Road area. For the Bayfront, it does require a little more interpretation from between what's described in the general plan as the sort of qualities for the Bayfront. But it does fall on design review, and that's maybe a little trickier without having a specific plan in place, but that is the purview of the Planning Commission to kind of look at the urban design context for these different development projects and make those kind of design judgments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Camerado.
Maybe it would put everyone at ease. Do we have any more new projects that are coming before us in the next few months that might indicate that we might need to get this going faster, or are we okay after the last one we had on Rollins Road?
So there's no current projects in the Rollins Road area that are in the pipeline. So that was the last approval. Of course, there could be another one in the future, but we have not had any pre-application meetings or anything like that. In the Bayfront, there is one more project that has been submitted. The site where the former, that hotel that was approved at 1499 Bayshore Highway has been resubmitted as a new commercial project. So that would be coming in the future. But then beyond that, as of today, we have not had inquiries or any kind of rumblings of pre-applications or such for any further projects. And then in El Camino zone, nothing on the horizon.
And then I guess the question is, what's the process now? So if we say this is coming off the books and then we have to work on the new specific plan for that area, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, you don't need to have a specific plan. It's, it is helpful to have one. It basically provides further detail or specificity to the general plan. The specific plans are part of the general plan. So in absence of a specific plan, the guiding regulations are the general plan in terms of the policy direction, and then the zoning code for the regulations, design regulations. So in Rollins Road, there will be more design guidelines coming along, and it will provide a little more detail than what is in the general plan. But much of it will also look familiar. It'll reflect a lot of what's already in the zoning code right now. And it is meant to implement the general plan. So it's not really taking things in a different direction. With the Bayfront, it's I think in looking at the old specific plan, it described a very different kind of development typology than either the projects we're seeing now or what the general plan looked at. It was kind of a little more lower density and projects with a little more isolated from each other, I guess you'd say. They're a little more self-contained. So the general plan did shift the direction and kind of go with a more urban kind of framework. But again, you don't need to have a specific plan. It could be helpful But in the absence of one, it's the zoning code and design review through the planning commission. I
Okay,
do
thanks,
see
Heather.
Assistant City Attorney Spansdale has his hand up too.
Chair Gall, if I may, I just thought it might be helpful if Director Gardner, if you talked a little bit about, as you mentioned, and I think you hit on this a little bit right there. This is sort of a housekeeping project, and the general plan did go into some details in this area. So essentially, by repealing this doesn't mean that we're trying to move back progress. The general plan had contemplated this area of the city, and that does not stop from a future specific plan going into place. So I just wanted to make sure people that the commission understood that this isn't necessarily a permanent thing. It's just the next step in the progress of the work that's been done in that area. But I definitely welcome Director Gardner, the expert on this, to confirm if that's true or if he has anything to add.
No, it's correct. And you know, in practice, when the general plan was adopted, we basically thought, oh, okay, that basically overrides the old specific plans. They're, you know, they are obsolete. But as long as they're on the books, that does create both confusion and also potential legal questions in terms of what is really the guiding document. And given the general plan is more current and was adopted more recently, that's inferred to be the guiding document. But it is confusing to have different plans saying different things both on the books, and we really want the general plan, the 2019 general plan, to be describing the vision for these areas.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Any emails?
Let's see, I am not seeing any emails for this item.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments? Would anyone like to make a motion?
And just as a reminder, this is a recommendation to the city council.
Oh, so we don't.
So, no, you would make a motion, Chair Gall, you're absolutely right. But in the motion, you would be making a motion to
Recommend.
make a recommendation to approve X, Y, and Z to the city council.
Okay.
And if it's at all helpful, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a resolution included with the staff report. So, and that describes pretty much what we've just mentioned. So should that be agreeable to the planning commission, then you could, you know, support that resolution with the findings that are included with that resolution.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lowenthal.
I was going to make the motion to approve the consideration recommendation per the staff findings to repeal the Bayfront specific plan.
I'll second the motion.
And just to clarify, that includes the repeal of the recommendation to repeal the fees that go alongside those specific plans.
Yes, to repeal the fees and yes.
Okay, thank you. In the second as well.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Lowenthal and a second by Commissioner Say. Is there any discussion on the motion? No. All right, then can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Camarado.
Aye.
Commissioner Horan.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal.
Aye, and I will have to excuse myself. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
All right, you hung out to the very end.
Got it in. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Foff.
Aye.
Chair Gall.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0. I don't know if this action is appealable to the city council, but if it was, I'm sure they would just send it back to us.
It is a recommendation.
It'll
to the city
stick.
council.
Yeah, they have to live with it.
Okay. All right. So that concludes our regular action. Our regular action section of this meeting. So we'll move on to design review study items, of which I see none on my agenda unless anyone else has any. So we'll move to commissioners' reports. Do we have any commissioners' reports? Nope. So how about directors' reports?
sure, we do have an FYI for 1 Adrian Court that addresses the graphics on the parking garage wall facing the park there. So let me know if you have any concerns with that, or if you'd like to call that up for further discussion.
Okay. But any Vice Chair Pfaff?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, but I wanted to look at that again, actually, for the reason of what they picked over the initial or just general context of what they're putting on there. So, but I mean, I don't know. I see a nod. I mean,
Yeah, without getting into further discussion,
Yeah,
I think that
okay.
it's fair to pull it and we will
Right.
see it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Commissioner Schmidt, did you have a comment?
I don't disagree.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I think that that's it, unless anyone else has anything else.
No, thank you all for joining on a Tuesday evening. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All
We'll
right.
see you at the next one.
All right.
Thanks
Good night,
for
everyone.
your game, all you
Night.
sportlers.
Back to baseball.
All right.
Back to
Yeah, everybody.
baseball. Bye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:35.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Night.
Thanks.